Where do we start, Simon Marks?
Well, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, we could start with, where would you like to start with? How the White House is treating the Democrats, perhaps?
Well, we've got a clip on that. And this ties in with something I talk about quite a lot on the programme, which is the invention of enemies. The fact that, it happens in this country. They start talking about the radical left copying Donald Trump, and you say, well, who do you mean? Who are these people? And why haven't I been invited to their get-togethers and their parties? These are largely non-existent groups. But I've never heard it quite as bad as Karoline Leavitt, the press secretary at the White House, made it yesterday.
The Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. That is who the Democrat Party is catering to, not the Trump administration and not the White House and not the Republican Party, who is standing up for law-abiding Americans, not just across the country, but around the world.
So, I mean, off the top of your head, how many votes did the Democrats get at the last election?
72 million? 73 million?
72 million people who fall into this category.
The Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals.
To be facetious for a moment, if there are 72 million Hamas terrorists, violent criminals and illegal aliens in the United States of America, leaving aside, of course, the fact that the illegal aliens wouldn't be able to vote, they're not doing a very good job of keeping the country safe, are they?
Look, I think that this is a really serious trajectory on which the White House has placed itself over the last 3 months. It was 2.5 months ago when Stephen Miller, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, the chief ideologue of the Make America Great Again movement and Donald Trump's really right-hand man in terms of philosophy, first described the Democratic Party as a domestic extremist organisation. And that was the canary in the coal mine, because in the 2.5 months since then, the language has become increasingly virulent, increasingly embraced use of the word terrorist to describe the radical left, by which they absolutely mean the Democrats.
So the late Jimmy Carter, for example.
The late Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and critically, as they begin to prepare to root out the funders and supporters of the Democratic Party, people like George Soros, whose Open Society Foundation is absolutely in the crosshairs of criminal investigation now, as are other prominent left-wing and progressive organizations that will be falsely accused of funding what the Trump White House claims is an insurrection. And where all of this is inexorably leading to is the president invoking the Insurrection Act of 1807. He said now on multiple occasions he may have no alternative but to do it. You know, someone hold me back, stop me from doing it. He'll invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807 in order to claim that the future of the Republic is threatened by a violent terrorist uprising by radical left Democrats, by which he means Democrats who are taking to the streets of cities like Chicago and cities like Portland and are protesting the thuggish actions of his masked immigration and customs enforcement agents who are pulling people off the streets, breaking into people's homes. We're going to have an example of that this afternoon on American Week at 10 to 6. Took place in Oregon earlier this week.
Oh, yes.
Where doors were broken down, seemingly by ICE agents who had no warrant, no constraints on their activities, as far as now pulling people off the streets, racially profiling them. Scores of them turn out to be US citizens who then have to spend days, if not weeks, trying to battle to be returned to their families and allowed out of ICE detention centres.
I'm going to pause there because that, again, and every time I talk to you, I find that I have to do this. People may not realise that is happening. People are being locked up. People are being taken away, locked up, guilty until proven innocent, and they are American citizens. And so the criteria under which they've been incarcerated is looking a little bit non-wasp.
The people that are being pulled off the streets by the confession of the head of Border Patrol are being racially profiled. If you look Latino, if you look like you come from somewhere south of the border, if you're driving around in a car and when the ICE agents see you, they see the white knuckles, you know, because they sense that you're suddenly concerned that they might be coming after you, that is enough now for ICE to stop the car on occasion, even to drive into the vehicle to try and pin it and prevent it from moving. They haul these people out. They have no idea who they are. And then they take them away. And only after they take them away do they begin processing them. We've got to the point now where in the last couple of weeks, in some parts of the country, people are being asked to produce their papers. And I didn't know this.
Go on.
I'm a green card holder. I'm not an American citizen, so I'm a permanent legal resident of the United States. By law, which I did not know until I read about this 10 days ago, I am required to carry my green card with me. Now, because of the nature of my job, I always do, because I never know when I'm going to have to go somewhere. But there are lots of people that wouldn't be doing that naturally. So if they haul me across, you know, and take me away, I can immediately reach into my pocket and say, there's my green card. You know, you got nothing on me. But if you don't have the capacity to produce your papers now, your visa to show that you've got one, your green card to show that you're a legal permanent resident, or potentially your passport to show that you're a US citizen, they'll take you away. And so we've reached the show me your papers stage of this authoritarian government.
I don't know what words to use anymore, because every time you come in we talk about the ratcheting up or the seriousness of it or the increasing absence of any sort of leavening factors or reasons to be cheerful. I don't think there are any, not least if you are a journalist who has been working at the Pentagon for 20 years.
Yes, well, absolutely. I mean, we are now at a point where for the first time since 1943, since the first time since that iconic Pentagon-shaped complex opened, there are no accredited members of the press covering events in that building as a result of changes that Pete Hegseth, the man we must now call the Secretary of War, decided to implement with regards to the activities of journalists who have covered things going on at the Pentagon and monitored how it spends $1 trillion in taxpayer money every year. Hegseth said that if they wanted to stay, they had to promise that anything that they were going to publish needed to be sent to the Pentagon press office for authorization first of all. I mean, this is like going back to, you know, Good Morning Vietnam kind of stuff. That they were not allowed to attempt to inveigle anyone in the building to leak information to them, nor, it seemed by one reading of these rules, even necessarily allowed to go and talk to retired generals and get their views on what's taking place inside the building. And this is coming, James, at a time when the United States has been engaged in extrajudicial killings in the Caribbean, 6 separate speedboats that we have to take on trust from Pete Hegseth really were engaged in the business of drug trafficking narcotics to the United States.
They could share intelligence if they wanted to, if they had it.
They could have come forward and provided all sorts of proof to back up their claims.
But they're just blowing
speedboats out of the water. And this week, Donald Trump saying that he might start launching airstrikes on Venezuelan soil as well. Yeah. They don't even pretend to have a legal justification for any of this. The legal justification is apparently we've got to save American lives from Venezuelan drug traffickers and therefore we'll do anything that we want to do in order to do it. So the Pentagon accredited journalists have all refused to sign these new rules of the road, and they've all left the building.
What does that mean?
It means that Pete Hegseth is presiding over a Pentagon that is not now receiving any scrutiny from inside the building.
But they'll be able to carry on doing the job.
Yes, from outside the building.
I see.
But you won't be able to see things that are happening. You won't be able to sit in a briefing room and be briefed by the Pentagon press secretary or by Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War.
The obvious question is, why would anybody be so terrified of scrutiny? To which the answer ties in with your first topic today, and that is because they're doing terrible things.
Well, it's all about total disdain for accountability. If you've watched the performance of Hegseth and the Attorney General Pam Bondi when they've been brought before congressional committees, they are required to testify to Congress. Remember, it's Congress that approved their nominations and appointed them into these cabinet positions. They treat obviously mostly Democrats in Congress, with utter disdain, but they treat the process of accountability and transparency with disdain. So, some veteran Pentagon correspondents are arguing that Pete Hegseth doesn't understand what he's losing. He's losing this conduit to communicate with millions of Americans about what the Pentagon is doing every day. I don't think Pete Hegseth cares about that. I think he just wants to get on with it. With the doors closed, nobody around to look and see what's going on, and everybody having to stand outside the building trying to work out what's happening inside it rather than being inside it and getting a sense of what is taking place.
We talk about the language, don't we? Fascism, racism, all of those things. There's a development in the world of refugees that is, about as close to apartheid-era South Africa as it's currently possible to imagine a 21st century American policy being.
Well, it looks like this is where we're heading. So the White House has been sent proposals that have been leaked and have been seen by reporters by both the State Department and the Department of Homeland Security, completely to remake refugee policy. Now, it's already been partly remade because at the moment America's doors are closed to virtually all refugees except for white Afrikaner farmers from South Africa who will falsely claim, because this hasn't happened, that their land has been taken by the South African government without compensation. And just to be clear, there is a new law. There are circumstances under which the South African government could expropriate land without compensation, but it's never done it. Never done it once to a single farmer.
And it's very popular on certain social media sites. This mythology of black people stealing stuff from white people.
Absolutely, and it's fueled by right-wing media in the United States that has Donald Trump's ear. So we've seen the evisceration of the bilateral relationship between the United States and South Africa over the last few months. The plan now is to embed this notion within official US government refugee policy and to say that moving forward, in fact, refugee status should be largely protected for people who can claim political, particularly free speech, persecution in Europe, in other parts of the world with predominantly white populations. This is moving completely away from the notion of bring me your tired, your huddled masses, as represented by the Statue of Liberty. This is moving to a point, and it should really worry Number 10, that America's doors may be open to all of those people that we know have found sympathy within the corridors of Donald Trump's White House. We've seen the Tate brothers, of course, spend a bit of time in Florida. There will be others that may soon find themselves being afforded refugee status by a US government that is no longer interested in helping, for example, the victims of the conflict in Sudan.
And of course, you won't have to prove anything if you're on this list. You won't have to prove persecution. You won't have to prove that your freedom of speech has been in any way curtailed. You'll just have to say that it has and have enough followers on social media to be helpful to the White House's mission.
Well, the bar's very low already because the South African
just got to be white.
Situation is sort of making the case. I mean, you do have to go through a process in South Africa, but it's based on a falsehood.
So you can get locked up for absolutely no reason whatsoever if you are Hispanic, and you can achieve refugee status for no reason whatsoever if you are white.
Absolutely.
There should be a word for that kind of attitude, shouldn't there? God, it's just on the tip of my tongue. When are you heading back?
Next weekend.
Okay.
How are you
feeling about that?
I'm feeling... look, I'm a very privileged person. I have the capacity to come and go for as long as they allow me to come and go. I am able to do my work on both sides of the Atlantic, and I'm very lucky and grateful for that. So, I'm very committed to being there and observing events in the United States as a foreign pair of eyes, an international observer of what is taking place. Even though next year will be my 33rd year there, I still feel very much an outsider, not an insider. And I'm going to carry on doing that for as long as I can in sort of time-honoured fashion. And if it becomes impossible to do it, well, it becomes impossible to do it. But I don't think we're at that point yet. Hopefully.
Final question, and one I've probably asked you before, is the stuff that you report to us, and I work in London, I rely on international media and to an increasing extent, actually, some of the outlets that I access via Blue Sky. It's the urgency present in the States. It's not, even on the other side of the aisle. The people that will be as repulsed by all the things you've just discussed as we are not as exercised by it or as aware of it as they should be.
Well, they're exercised, particularly at a grassroots level, which is why you're seeing what you're seeing in Chicago and Portland and other cities across the country. But they're leaderless. They are absolutely rudderless. And there's hardly
any...
And
the media has been cowed. A lot of the media has been cowed, not just evicted from the Pentagon, but bought by allies of Donald Trump.
Right, and if you look at what's happened at the Pentagon, it's perfectly possible that may eventually happen at the White House as well.
Yeah.
Already, as you and I have talked about before, the White House press corps has been swelled by all of these polemicists who suddenly have a place at the table that they would never have been given before. Very good piece in The New Yorker that's just come out today by Susan Glasser about the state of the current White House press corps and where it may be heading. And of course, the media behemoths, CBS bent the knee, ABC now being taken over essentially by MAGA sympathizers. ABC bent the knee, the Washington Post completely eviscerated as any kind of respectable journalistic outlet anymore after Jeff Bezos and Will Lewis bent the knee to Trump. I mean, it's not what it used to be.
It is impossible to exaggerate. And I mean, you say polemicist, others might say white supremacist liars have got the upper hand in so many corners of this administration and indeed this profession.